Onstage, onstage with Jim and Tom. 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 Tom and Jim.
Tonight, we celebrate the 33 1/3 anniversary of The Last Record Store. Founded in 1983, The Last Record Store has become more than just a place to buy music. It's an iconic Sonoma County institution and an essential part of our artistic community. Tonight, we'll explore the history of this place as well as the philosophies of the people behind it. We are joined by founder Doug Jayne, alongside longtime associates Ethan Jayne and Gerry Stumbaugh. 33 1/3 years.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the program, everybody.
Wow.
Thanks, Jim.
Happy to be here.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Tom.
awesome. What a quick 33 1/3 years it was.
Yeah, it's a mind blower. 33 and a half years is more than half of my life. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a long time.
Yeah, right.
And, to have the same guy as your business partner all that time, too. It's my longest relationship.
The record store was founded just right before Tom started here at the Phoenix.
I'm going on, it'll be 33 years for me at the Phoenix in August this year. So we were, you guys got me by a third of a year, I think.
83?
83. Yeah, you bet.
Big
What a
year
year.
for Sonoma County.
What a year.
Did you ever
Oh,
live in the back room of the Phoenix?
Not the Phoenix. I've lived in the back room of a theater or two, though, in my life. So,
And I
yes.
only asked that because when we first opened up Old Hoyt, we set him up in one of the empty rooms. We moved into our first store was a optometrist office when we moved in, and they had emptied out. So they had little examination rooms. So we set up his bed in there and his books and candles and stuff.
They didn't leave the examination bed in there.
No, but we had some displays that you would hang your glasses on, those kind of things that they left there. And then he would go over and shower at the YMCA and then come back and open up the shop. But we got him a house in Cotati very fast.
So a little history, kind of what led you there. You worked for Warehouse Records, Doug. You started as looked like a trainee there, a manager trainee.
I answered an ad in the paper for managers, trainees, and I'd never thought about working in the record store. My first wife, 1 out of 3, she saw the ad, and I was like, I never thought about working in a record store. She's like, you alphabetize all your albums. I mean, come on. I'm such a dork. I've got dividers and everything. It's like, but I never thought of it. I never went into a record store and looked at the people behind the counter and thought like, hey, that looks like a good gig. That guy looks dorky enough. I bet I could do that. Within a short period of time, I was given a company Pinto by the warehouse, and
this is for Warehouse Music. They gave you a company Pinto.
Warehouse Music.
Yeah.
I was made a assistant vice president was the title that they would
Wow,
give people in lieu of raises, and I had 10 stores that I would drive around to, and you'd go in and
In the Pinto?
in the Pinto, and you'd go in and talk
Driving
to the
to
managers, and
Riverside,
they're half
driving.
the time they fucking hated you, and just like, oh, they'd be all uptight when you're coming in. It's like, it's cool, bro. We take some of the staples down off your wall, and we're gonna move your country western section over here next to the blues and make more sense. Wow. What ended it for me at Warehouse was that they had a store in Watts, and they fired the entire crew, and I drove down there with a guy who was a real vice president of the company, and they went in, fired everybody, including the security guard, and they put me in charge and said, you're going to have to hire a crew and get the inventory straight. It's like, I'm like this 23-year-old white kid from Orange County. It's like I'm in Watts, and I've got to climb up a big ladder and put help wanted manager trainee, and it was horrible. I just... I knew nothing about. It's like, where's their Peter Frampton albums?
But basically, you ended up in Santa Rosa, right? Mm-hmm. And you would have to go to, just to get to Last Record Store, you would have to go to Backdoor Records. That was a pain in the ass to make that drive. Mm-hmm. And it struck you as weird that Santa Rosa, a pretty populous town, didn't have a record store. And that's kind of what led you on the path. Is that correct?
Right. It had one little record store that I actually was in a arrangement to buy. It was called Prez Records. They were in Railroad Square. And the fellow that owned it, it was mainly a jazz aficionado. And so he had the store for sale, and I agreed to his terms. And then him and his wife decided they didn't want to sell it. And I started thinking, like, why was I going to give him X amount of money to just move out of this place? Why don't I just get my own place and build some bins and put some records in there.
So Hoyt couldn't be here tonight, but his spirit will be here because he definitely he definitely is an important part of that place. Anybody who has gone in there in the last 30 years knows who he is. What I love about Hoyt,
he's the face of the place. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
he is.
I've been saying for years we should just have T-shirts with Hoyt on them.
Hoyt does a funny thing when he answers the phone. It reminds me of the comedy team of Bob and Ray. They had this character named Wally Ballou who was a sports reporter, and whenever they would go to Wally Ballou, they'd go, "And now here's Wally Ballou," and they would never have his mic coming at the same time, so he'd go, "Lee Ballou here." They'd cut it off. So Hoyt always says "last record store" before the phone actually activates, so all people hear is "store," and so 90% of the people that call say, "Is this the last record store?" And he's like, "These phones are horrible."
and if only he would delay it 3 seconds. What I love about Hoyt is he is the face of the place. But he also isn't afraid to voice opinions, which maybe are contrary to what the people he's talking to have. And I think he gets a kick out of it, you know?
Well, we all get a kick out of it because I think what you're trying to do is get people to. You're not trying to belittle anyone's choice.
No.
I think early on when we started, he was a little more. Here's a good story: is we had. I worked at the Volvo shop, and one of my customers was a lady named. Her last name was Hartman, and her husband was the ex-husband was the drummer, one of the drummers of the Doobie Brothers. I believe he lived in Petaluma.
Yeah.
And might have worked for the police department in Petaluma for a while before he passed away. Anyway. So I got to know them, and he was kind of like, "Don't charge me too much, don't fix this on our car." So he's paying for the car repair. I got to know him, got to know her. He comes in the record store one day while I'm working there with Hoyt, and John Hartman says to me, he goes, "Yeah, Doobie Brothers are going to record a Moby Grape song," and then Hoyt overhears it and goes, and he looks at me and goes, "What's wrong with that?" So I'm like, "Oh, nothing. Hoyt loves the Moby Grape. He thinks it's a great idea. This is John Hartman from the Doobie Brothers. So meet my brother Hoyt." It was like, "Oh man, don't do that." Doobie Brothers.
I'm sure that it's less like that now, but there's still shades of that. I mean, he may disagree with you and he'll voice it. He's not being disrespectful, but that's part of the Hoyt character and part of the charm of a lot of people like Hoyt who work in record stores. But Hoyt is our version of that character.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's showing more restraint now. He's showing more restraint on the scoffs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Today, a girl, like a maybe 20-year-old girl, was buying Stevie Nicks' Belladonna and said, "I love this. I've been looking for this for a while. Stevie Nicks is my spirit animal." And he held it in. He held it together. And,
Wow.
You could feel it, though. You could feel that he felt something.
It was right when we were closing up. So it was time to get her out the door.
You guys have a quote on the wall of the record store from Jeff Tweedy. I'm going to read it. It says, "My introduction to all this great music into the music business came from hanging around and eventually working at independent record stores. Nothing beats browsing in your favorite store, listening to music, finding something new or old that you've been searching for, and all that. Without these stores, there's just no way that Wilco would still be around."
Yeah.
That's pretty sweet.
I think Jeff pretty much said that about us, right?
Yeah.
Is that the,
Well, I mean, he did because you are that equivalent for this community.
Yeah.
To the point about there would be no Wilco if there weren't independent record stores. There's been some things that have happened that were sort of close call type encounters. CDs coming out, that was sort of an adjustment you had to make pretty quickly. Obviously, we all know about downloads becoming a thing. That was an adjustment you had to make. Big box, Best Buy, Target type stores. Tell us about that. You made a face, and I kind of know it, but I'd like to hear it from your perspective.
Best Buy's opens up and they decide that they will sell new CDs for below our cost, which is about $10. This is what right about when we were moving, right? So
definitely.
So we're moving into a new place, trying to get
2000s.
people to come over, and we actually had customers that come and go, "Man, I was just at Best Buy and bought a dozen CDs for $10 each." It's just like,
and they cost us like 12.
great. Why don't you come in and tell me you just molested my sister? Gee.
But now they're tanked. All those box stores are like, nobody buys records there
Absolutely,
at all
yeah.
anymore. They had a couple years, and
I almost felt like it was kind of a weird cosmic payback because when I worked for the chain stores, a lot of times the chain stores would pick a strip mall to put their store in that was close to a mom and pop shop, move in, sell their shit for $3.99, and mom and pop shop leaves, and then they jack their prices back up. And I think what the good part that happened with all that going down is that it's almost like if you're on a working on a boat or something, and you're out at sea, and all of a sudden you run into some stormy weather, and your rations are low or something, so you learn how to adapt and get by with little. So we had smaller amounts of money coming in, and we just had to adjust the way we ordered stuff, and sometimes cut hours and just whatever it took to keep going. So then when business started pumping back up again, you already had positioned yourself to work through adversity. It kind of made us a little stronger, I think, in a way. And it was kind of a little wake-up call, too.
Has it ever felt like more than just a business, a way to provide for the family?
Well, it always just felt like a job, but something I heard something a while ago, and it was when Gabe Moline had gone up to Oregon, and he went in to see the guy at the music group up in Ashland.
John.
And John said, "So Doug's still in business, huh? He's still making a go of it, huh?" And Gabe says, "Well, yeah. Not only is he in business, but he's pays for people's health care and started a SEP IRA for the employees, and I was able to buy a house with the money that I made working there, and Gerry bought a house with the money that he made working there." And it's like, so Gabe just jumped in and spoke so highly of me that I hadn't even thought about it. Wow, really? You work for that dude? He sounds pretty awesome.
So Gabe Moline, if people don't know, he's a journalist. He's now the KQED Arts and Music Curator. Worked at the Last Record Store for 14 years. Had this to say about working at the place. He said, I learned a lot about life, too. Things like how to treat people properly, how not to be a snob, and how actions and achievements mean more than opinions and ideals. So that kind of ties in with what you're saying. I mean, for the people who've spent a lot of time there, 14 years is a long time to dedicate to a place. It's more than just, I think, a record store to work at.
Mm-hmm. Well, a couple things that really stuck with me in different places I worked at was when I worked at Warehouse, I saw that they almost were giddy about the fact that they had never, when I worked for them, they had never paid an unemployment claim.
Ugh.
So they had this procedure that you had to go through. If you wanted to fire someone, they had to go through all these steps and sign these things, and no one ever got an unemployment claim from the Warehouse. Bravo. But what happened, they treated people so poorly that, like, people are ripping off albums, and, people are just stealing shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
right. Not get carrying.
You can't rip people off that work for you. So I just learned a long time ago, it's like, man, you got to take care of the people that work for you that are, like, touching your money and talking to the people that are your customers and stuff. So it's like bad idea to try and rip off employees.
I excerpted that, and I was reading another thing, which just I want to tie everything together here for a minute. So 30 years, you guys have been 33 and 30 years, Last Record Store's been at it. Tom, you've been doing the Phoenix for about 32 years now.
Well, 33 in August.
33 in August, yeah. And my family founded Petaluma Market right next door in 1987, so we're coming on our 30th anniversary ourselves. And I think a lot about that when I was going into this, because I bet you guys could write, much like we can over at the market, an encyclopedia on all the characters, stories, and experiences that you've had over the 30 years. One that Gabe mentioned in his article was the time that Doug rigged a huge PA speaker up on the roof and blared mule variations at midnight all over downtown Santa Rosa. Why would you do a thing like that?
Oh, it was the release date for the album, so you couldn't sell the album until whatever the date
Tuesday.
was. So when it turned midnight, we would have a midnight sale, and you're able to sell the thing. We had a very funny, things. We had a good period of time there where we had lots of midnight sales.
Metallica.
One of the funniest ones was Tori Amos. And my friend Bob Malta and I are over at my little studio that was on top of the other record store, just right across from the one on 4th Street. And we're playing music and, getting stoned and stuff. And it's like, oh, my God, it's almost midnight. I got to open up the store and sell Tori Amos records. So I go in through the back door, and as I'm walking in the front, I hear, shit. Cocksucker. And there were these people that were in line that had Tourette syndrome. And it was just, I mean, I'm like kind of hammered. It's just like, oh man. And all the people in line are like, so they get in and they're the nicest people. They're like, oh, thanks. We're looking forward to this. And you give them the poster and everything. They're like, thank you. It's just so weird. It's like, whoa.
That Tori Amos one is a perfect example. Just those big ones when you look back at the 30 years or however long you guys have been there.
We had a good one. Mick Taylor from the Rolling Stones played at the Cotati Cabaret, and the record company contacted us and wanted to know if we wanted to do an in-store album signing. It's like, yeah, sure. So we set up a table in the front, and I sat next to Mick Taylor, and all these people are coming in with stacks of their Rolling Stones, and he signed everyone. And so I was like, well, I'm not actually on this one, but I'll sign it for you anyway. Real gracious. And then we went to a show that night. It was like half full. There were like 200 people in there to see him. It's like, Mick, why did you leave the Rolling Stones again? So, I don't fucking know. We had a guy who was pretty nutty, and this particular guy ended up punching Gabe Moline.
Oh, yeah.
Got him.
I wasn't sure if you were going to tell
and
that.
And he actually sued us for
Hurting
something.
his hand.
I don't know what happened.
It was defamation or something weird, right?
Oh, defamation of character, because he sold some CDs and or some music, and generally when people get some credit or you do a cash paid out, you have them sign it. So it's like, you sign their name and everything. So our employee at the time, rather than have them sign it, just wrote down Psycho Boy. Oh. So later on, Psycho Boy came back in to sell more stuff and saw Psycho Boy written down there where he knew his name was. Psycho Boy, and he fucking went psycho, believe it or not. Punched Gabe.
Right there. Yeah. Mark Weinstein, who is the founder of Amoeba Music, had this to say about record stores and music. Music is most people's connection to the spiritual. It's how they get high. You have to respect that, whatever sort of music they're into. I kind of keep coming back to this being more than a record store, because I feel like, especially for Ethan and I's generation, in this area in particular, religion is not really that much of a thing. And old sort of like gathering places and communal type spaces and things are less of a thing. So I find places that are like music venues and music stores sort of take that, have sort of elevated to that role. And I really do feel like...
I would agree with you, because I think the stories of groups like the Beatles and Stones and stuff, their stories are, more... I don't want to sound like John Lennon when he's dissing Jesus Christ or anything, but they speak to people more. I mean, you can listen to that music. I mean, the idea of, Christianity and God, dying on the cross and all, coming back and everything, it's not for everybody. But I mean, anybody can hear the story of the Beatles and hear that music and go, yeah.
But I would think that if you were just selling records, period, which is what Amazon.com does, which is what Best Buy does, which is what iTunes does, then there wouldn't be a place for the record store. But because it is more than just a record store, that's why I think it remains and will continue to remain.
A community.
I'll read one more quote. I just like quotes. Patton Oswalt. The idea of the journey as the destination is put into action by browsing an indie record store. Besides, a human being is a much better guide than a more like this link on the internet. I mean, there's just... Sure. It's a funny thing about the last record store, I think. I think that there are people probably who haven't been in the record store in 10 years who are just like really happy the record store is still there. Yeah. And if the record store was announcing it was going to close, they would be absolutely heartbroken. And that's, again, what I mean when I say that it's more than a record store. It's just like a... Boy, I'm glad that's still happening. I mean, they could not come to see a show here.
Institution.
Exactly. They could come to not see. They could not come to see a show here for 20 years, but they're happy that you're still here managing the place.
Yeah, I get that all the time. People will come back and they say, "Wow, I haven't been here in 10 years, and I'm so excited you're still here."
We have a lot of customers that grow up, have kids, and then bring their kids.
Yeah,
in.
the kids are coming
shop
in
with the kids.
Yeah, and we see
now
that.
the kids are getting into vinyl, and their kids are cruising at the vinyl, and they're pulling out all the albums and looking at all the album covers.
Yes,
because they're so interesting. The CDs, they're smaller. They're just not as.
It's not the same.
It's not as thrilling.
What year were you born in?
I was born in 1987.
1987.
So
that was a good year.
it was a good year.
I was
Petaluma Market.
So there was always record store.
There has always
Yeah.
been the last record store.
I still, in a few ways, feel like the new guy. And I've been 16 years.
Here's a funny thing that kind of put it in perspective how long 1983, how long ago it was that we had an employee, first girl we hired, her name was Sequoia.
Oh, yeah.
And she had a nose ring, and she had the only nose ring in town. So people would refer to her as the girl with the ring in her nose. That'd be like saying, the guy with the tattoos. The guy with the tattoos. It'd be like, yeah, I think I know who you mean. So that's how long ago it was. She was the only person in the county that had a nose ring.
Did you know, Reinhardt's Music and Video in Kirksville, Missouri is the oldest record store in America? It was founded in 1897. He started selling wax cylinders and Edison phonographs. It remains in the family in the 2000s, but they had to start selling DVDs and video games to remain commercially viable.
Wow.
Speaking of weird trivia, what does the logo mean?
The jackalope?
Yeah.
Well, we named the store after a Little Feat album called The Last Record Album. And this record is got a shot of a kind of deserted town that looks like Hollywood Boulevard, like if it was a deserted western town. And there's a jackalope sitting in the middle of the road. And there's the Hollywood sign is on a Jell-O mold in the back. We thought we'll call it The Last Record Store and we'll use the jackalope. And thought yeah.
And it stuck.
Yeah, and we met members of Little Feat, and they're cool with it and everything. So that it was good, because we didn't want to rip off Grateful Dead or Frank Zappa that have lawyers. That's true.
We needed some more low-hanging fruit than that.
Yeah.
Was Uncle Meat one of the store name ideas? That was one I saw on the
that
list.
would have been a bad idea.
Probably.
Hoyt actually came up with the idea for Last Record Store. Mine was Uncle Meats, because I was a Frank Zappa fan, and that was
you
Frank
bet.
Zappa. Oh.
No, Frank would have still come after you.
So you gave a quote by Jeff Tweedy earlier. Did you know that Hoyt was in the Wilco movie?
No, I didn't.
For about
The documentary called "I'm Trying to Break Your Heart."
Tell us about that. What did he do?
Hoyt went down with our rep from WIA, went to the Great American Music Hall to see Jeff Tweedy. Both these guys like Wilco. And so the guy took Hoyt backstage to meet Jeff Tweedy afterwards, who was just in a foul mood. TK, the guy who took Hoyt, is wearing a Last Record Store T-shirt. Hoyt's got his Giants cap on. Is like, got to meet Tweedy, and it's on the movie. It's like, Last Record Store Center, big fan. He was so worried that he was going to look like a dork, but he looked great. And someone asked Tweedy a question in the room of the people that are admiring. Someone asked him something that just rubbed him the wrong way, and he just said, and just shook his head and walked out of the room.
And that's in the video?
Yeah. He left it in there.
Gerry, you had said that you had some, no pressure here, but you just mentioned you had a lot of stories and thoughts about the record store coming in. Was there anything that we didn't touch on that you had kind of been thinking about in the lead up to this?
No, the record store's been so important to me. I mean, I've done it more than anything I've ever done. It's longer than any relationship I've had. It's like I've had 2 kids born since I've worked there. It's it's just been real big for me.
That means people at the Last Record Store getting laid.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
At least twice.
So it's been more than a place for you to work. It's been a family.
For me, sure, yeah.
And I mean, been the only thing you've known in your family, Ethan. I mean,
that's it. I moved away too. I moved to Portland for a while. I tried to stake out I worked at a different record store in Portland, but I had to stake out my little independence, my bubble. I had to do my own thing, and I came back, and it's still there.
Well, what was cool is you came back and you had all these great ideas.
Yeah.
You really energized us when you came back.
A lot of times Ethan will just be like, it won't be like, he'll never say up in Portland they did this, but he'll just be like, maybe we should cut this section down and expand this section. And be like, oh yeah, we could do that, and then they're always good. And Ethan's someone that'll walk by a bin and see that the records are messy looking and just go through and kind of manicure everything, and just have it all looking good. And a lot of guys work in record stores they go to file something. There's already 6 copies of that, and the bins are stuffed, and they're stuffing them in. No one that works for us.
Yes,
but
others.
Yeah, others that I've known.
They're still works of art, like you said. You love to look at them, and that image of how it looks is so important. And one of my favorite record stores up there, I didn't work there, but my favorite one to go spend time in was Mississippi Records, and you went there, and it was tiny. And they would just everything had to be perfect because they had no space. Yeah. And that just that stuck with me. It's got to look right when someone walks in, they want to see their record looking nice.
I'm involved in a family business too. Mm-hmm. And if I wasn't, I'd feel like it'd be super annoying asking this question. But my intention is to do that for a really long time. is your intention to stick around with the record store for the foreseeable future and beyond?
Absolutely. It's too late to stop now. 33 and a third more years. Please.
Tom, do you have any closing thoughts for us here tonight?
Well, I mean, the Phoenix Theater is. You guys have been selling our tickets for since about 86 or 87, I think. And yeah, we couldn't have existed without you guys even being in the county. You guys had been there supporting the kids, turning them on to music, and allowing us to post, allowing them to sell their demos and all of that stuff there. You guys have been great. And a great part of what the Sonoma County music scene is a part of your legacy as well. And it's been wonderful to have you guys.
It is
around.
amazing because, I mean, most of the, I never had a store that stayed in business very long when I was a kid. I mean, by the time I was 20, all the record stores I shopped in when I was, 12 were gone.
We're gone, yeah.
When you talk about the shared history to the two places, I mean, look at all the long-term staff you've talked about that the last record store has. I mean, these are people who all have incredible history here at the Phoenix, too. Mm-hmm. So the paths of these two institutions have really intertwined a lot, and it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. We could probably write all the names of the employees we had on one sheet of paper, 25, and probably remember most of them. Mm-hmm.
And I guess the last thing that I would put out there is, do you have anything, Doug, to just sort of like look back on the 33 and a third years aside from what we've already said?
Well, just that, when you're a kid and you hear music the first time, wafting out of the radios in the cars you're driving home with your parents, or out of your dad's stereo, or your brother's bedroom who's got a record collection, and you have a fascination for this thing, and you start collecting records when you're 12, and you're still doing it when you're 62. It's pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah, it is.
Well, like we've said, the Last Record Store is at the center of our musical community here, and I believe, and I know Tom believes this too, that Sonoma County is lucky that it's 2016 and you guys are still doing this.
Absolutely.
So thank you for keeping it going and for spending some time here with us tonight to reflect on the last 33 and a third years.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank
you for having us.
And to another, 33 and a third, 45?
The next one will be 45.
45,
All right, well, let's do it again then and talk about all the craziness that happens in between.
Go.
Cool.
All right, thanks guys.
You guys.
Yeah, thank you.